All right. Um, let's get started. All right, so welcome back. So last class we were starting to work on an application for connected to IMDb, right? And query it for searching title, and then either favoriting or make them, say the particular user likes a particular movie, right? So I'd like to expand on that. Also, you should be getting started working on your projects and final projects. A lot of you are asking how to organize a file system, right? How to what goes on the server, and so I'd like to talk about that today as well. So let's revisit what we worked on Monday. Let's rehash it a little bit, right? So that it'll look more like the finished product that it should be, right? Putting the artifacts that go on the client running on the browser in one place, and then capturing what goes on the server in another directory structure. Okay. All right. So under here on the lectures, I'm going to create. We're going to do all our work, and we're going to split it up into artifacts that live on the browser, right? JavaScript, HTML, CSS, right? And split it up into a different proportion where the artifacts that live on the server, right? So on the server, you'll have you'll have the running server, right? You'll have Express listening for incoming HTTP requests. You'll have some kind of model, right, to capture data about users, capture data about movies, right? And also capture the fact that a particular user likes a particular movie, right? So to do that, let's create here a folder where we can play around with this idea. Movies. And under here, we're going to split it up into two different directories. We're going to put a directory here called client, and under client, we're going to put everything that lives on the browser, right? So all the JavaScript code, all the HTML, CSS, right? And then on the server directory, we're going to put here server. We're going to put everything that lives and runs on the server, right? So these are web services, right? URLs, Express, JS, models, lives under there. If we had a database, we would access it from here as well. We don't have a database just yet. We're going to start talking about databases next week, right? So for today, we're still going to be working with mock data, right? So just test data. Right? So on the client side, we're going to create here a couple of directories, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to have a top-level JavaScript file, right? That is going to basically instantiate the application, right? It's going to declare the application, and then you're going to have some kind of configuration, right? That configures navigation, right? If you click on here, you navigate to this page. If you click on there, you got to navigate to some other page, right? And then you put here also the templates, all the HTML for each one of the pages, right? So let's start off by creating here the first HTML. So we'll have it index.html is here. Okay, so in here you'll have load all your libraries, your AngularJS, your Bootstrap CSS, right? You load that, and we've done that already quite a few times. You'll have here also the top level JavaScript, right? The one that's going to declare your application, right? It's going to declare the top level module, any dependencies that it might have on other modules, and then you'll have here pages. You're going to have a different folder, right? Normally we don't call them just pages. We call them features, right? Because not necessarily do they have to be an entire page, right? It could be a subset of a page, right? It could be a snippet, right? It could be a header. It could be a footer, right? It could be snippets that you can then build bigger pages, right? In terms of these small. So we're going to create here for each one of these a separate directory, and we've been doing this somewhat in previous lessons, right? So for instance, you might have seen that we have a directory for the home page, right? You have a directory, maybe a page, right? Maybe a directory for the login, right? So these seem to be full-fledged pages, but they're not, remember, right? These are only subsets of pages, right? You have here modules that are shared amongst all these pages, such as you might have a header, right? You might have a header as well, right? And you might have a footer. Those are obviously snippets, right? Okay, those are obviously snippets. And then the entire page is built on top of all these snippets, right? You have the header, which is shared amongst all the pages, right? And then you have this internal views, right? The home, the profile, the admin and whatnot. All these other pages, login, registration, right, would live under each one of these, right? So we have a register. And in the assignments, right? You've been doing this somewhat. Okay, but there are some things that are shared amongst all of these. Right? Remember, each one of these pages will have a controller, right? The one that receives events from the user as they interact with the page, right? When they click on things, when they drag, whatever they do to the page, they notify a controller and says, "Hey, the user did this. What should I do? Right? What's the next thing they should do?" So each one of these is going to have not only the HTML that goes along with it, right? But also the controller that controls that page, right? That is responsible for interacting with the user, right? Updating the what the user sees, right? So we'll do that. We'll do just a couple of these. I'm not going to repeat myself. We've done a couple of these already, right? Certainly, if we're searching for movies, we might have here a directory, movies, right? Or we might have different things about movies, right? What could we do with a movie? Well, we could search a movie, right? We could have a detailed view of the movies, right? So the search might be, maybe an input field at the top, right? A summary listing of the movie where you maybe show the title, maybe a thumbnail, right? And then when you click on one, you go to see a details page, right? So you might have, under movies, you might have several views, right? You might have several views. You might have a search view, which gives you a summarized list of the movies that match the IMDb query, and then you would have a details view, right? When if you click on one of them, you see maybe the actors, the directors, and plot, and all sorts of other things, right? So you might have two views here. So you would list all the views under here. So you might have here search.view.html, right? And this would be, again, this is a snippet, right? It's not a full-blown HTML page. It's only a snippet of a page, right? That is meant to be included in a larger page, right? So I'm just going to search movie, right? Then you would have another HTML page that might be here is the details page of that particular movie, right? So you might have here details.view.html. Both of them, notice that both of them living under movies, right? So anything that has to do with displaying of information about a movie lives under movies directory, right? And you might have different views for these, right? So I'm gonna put here h1 details or movie. Okay, everybody still with me? Right. All right, so that's the front end. What else would live under this particular directory? Right? Any controllers that are responsible for each one of these pages, right? So you would have here also any JavaScript that is responsible for each one of these, right? So for instance, you might have here the search.controller.js, right? So this JavaScript that is responsible for that page to interact with that page, right? So any event handlers, right? If you click on a search button, right? Or if you click on a like button, or if you actually this controller, right? Okay, and so you would declare your controller here, right? Your typical controller, right? Using Angular. We'll do this in a second, right? But it would be something like Angular dot module movie app, right? And then the controller saying that I want a controller here called this is search, right? Search movie controller. Right, and some function that implements that controller. Okay, so there it is. So we have a blank controller for that particular page, right? You would also have controllers for the other page, right? The details view would live here, right? So for instance, let's copy this JavaScript and we'll call it details controller, and I'll just rename it. So this will be search movie. So this will be movie details controller. And so a controller for each one of these. And this would be true for each snippet of code, right? So the home would have its own view and its own controller, right? The header would be a view and a controller. The footer would have a view and a controller, right? Because you should be able to interact individually with each one of these, right? Okay, and you want to modularize it so that it's very, very small, right? A controller should never be, so big that that's pages and pages long. But it should be very, very easy to follow what a controller does for that particular snippet of HTML. Okay. All right, so that's the client. What else will we put here in the client? Well, so this deals with the user interacting with the HTML, right? I touch something, the controller interacts with me, right, immediately. Oh, he's searching for this movie, right? Or they want the details for that movie, or they like this movie, or they logged in, or they register, or they whatever, right? They have to go back to the server to talk to these things, right? And again, it needs to talk to about different things, right? Maybe I'm talking about a user. If they log in, they register, they log out. It's about a user, right? That's the entity we're talking about, the user. Or if we're searching for a movie or looking for details of a movie, the entity is the movie. We're talking about the movie, right? So for each one of these entities, right, the client wants us to be able to say, you can create new entities, you can delete entities, you can update entities, you can read all the entities, right, or read a particular entity, right? Plus, you can create any more of those. But typically, those are the 4 or 5 operations that you do on any entity, right? You can create users, you can delete users, right? You can update a user's profile. Same thing for movies, right? You can create, identify these entities. For each one of these entities, you want to capture those 4 or 5 operations, right? And the way the front end, right, the client talks to the server, right? We want to modularize, right, those operations on each one of these entities, right? So the way to the server, right, is by creating services, right? So we're going to have here services. Instead of having services spread out over each one of these headers or footers or movies or whatever, instead what we tend to do is capture all the services under one particular directory, right? All the services. If you're talking about users, we'll have the user service, right? If we have talking about movies, we'll have a movies service, right? And they all go under this directory services. So let's create just one of them, just really quick, an empty one, right? We'll code it as we need it. So in here you might have movie.service.js would be here, or you might have users, right? User service, right? So you have user.service.js under there. Okay, and you already know how to create a service, right? We've already done this, right? We use factories and whatnot. We'll build one very quick just to show you, but you've already done this. So let's see. I think that's about it on the client side, right? On the client side, you have HTML. Other than we're going to be using this Bootstrap CSS, right? But if you did have CSS that is overriding Bootstrap's CSS, you would have it here, right? You would have here on the client, you would have any CSS that you're overriding or local stuff, right? You would have it under here. If you have any less, right, would be here, right? If you have any SAS, would also live here, right? I know a couple of you are using less, right? So that's, we haven't covered that topic. It's great if you're using that technology. But if you do have CSS, it would live under here. A typical name for stuff that you would put in here would be just style. And you would load that. And typically what you would put here is overrides. You would override, whatever you don't like about Bootstrap. Okay, any maybe you want to change the way right, the gutters, right, or the padding left, padding right. Maybe you want to override certain things about Bootstrap. You would put it here, right? You would use Bootstrap classes. You would, so that it takes your styling instead of Bootstrap styling. Okay. Let's see what else. If you have any JavaScript. Right, any JavaScript, any libraries that you would, any vendor libraries, any plugins, you would put it under this directory, right? But as much as you can, you should use CDNs instead, right? You should if you're using Angular or jQuery or any other library, JavaScript library, right? You should download it from wherever it is being hosted, right? Either at Google, right, or from from several other CDNs out there, right? It's faster, but if you do have any JavaScript that you do want to host, right, it would go into this directory. Everybody okay? Right, so this is more or less the structure on the front end. Some people like to create a separate directory, right? Maybe like a views, right, and put anything that is being rendered in the front end, like for instance, login, right, header, footer, home, all these are pages, right, that are going to be rendered. A lot of people like to put them under there. So for instance, put all these guys, footer, movies, profile, register, right, drag them into views. I'll leave that up to you if you want to do that. Right, this makes it explicit, right, that these are actual pages, right, that are going to be rendered for the user, right. Whereas everything else, such as less, JavaScript, CSS, that's part of the framework, right? That's part of the infrastructure. Right? You need these are supporting the views, but they're not actual views, right? Login would live under here as well. And this makes it explicit that these are services, right? This is to talk to the server, right? And this is to talk to the browser. Right? Services talk back to the server, views talk back to the browser, right? Services do HTTP calls, put, get, post, put, right, delete to the server, whereas views manipulate the DOM, right, and manipulate the browser. Okay, so let's keep it that way. On the server side, so that's all on the client, on the browser. On the server, right, we're also going to mimic a little bit what the client does. The client has an app.js. Notice it's JavaScript, right? This is JavaScript running where? Running on the browser, right? It's running on the browser. On the server, we're going to also have an app.js. App.js. But this JavaScript is running on the server, right? It's running on Node.js. Right? It's running on the server. So it has completely different points of view of the application, right? This guy wants to be able to talk to the file system, right? It wants to talk to the browser is, encased in its sandbox, and it can only run inside of its secure browser. Right? The only thing that the client could do is go back to the server and ask for things, right? It can go back to the server and say, hey, give me another HTML file, give me a CSS file, right? Give me a JavaScript file, give me data, right? Give me JSON data. But it can't access a file system, it can't access database, it can't do anything. It has to always go through a server, right? Now, whether it goes through our server, which is this app.js, or it goes through someone else's server, right? Yes, clients can do that, right? Right? If it supports JSON-P and certain other security things, or it can come back to this server, our server, right? And to talk to our own database. Okay. So in here, you would create a module. You would create some kind of module. Have something like module.exports right function. Now, if you remember, this is also a snippet of a server, right? Because we already have a server running, right? We already have server.js running, right? So this is a piece of that server which is going to be invoked, right? It's going to be instantiated, and it's going to give us a reference to that server. I'm going to say, hey, the server is running. Here is a reference to that server, so you can right any HTTP request that might come in. Right. So this app, right? If you remember, this app was instantiated, was created here up in this. Oops, sorry. Up in here, right? This server.js, right? Where we created the Express instance, we created the app instance, right? Our server that we're creating now, right? That lives where? Where does it live? Let's see. It's under public, lectures, lectures, movies, and then app.js, right? It's under there. So we're going to say require the public, right? Lectures, movies, and then server/app.js, right? That's our little server we're building for this lecture, right? And we're passing a reference to app, right? So that app, you can create your own server. All right. So there it is. So here's our app. What do we do here? Well, what do we need to do here? Well, let's see. The client, right, the browser is going to come and tell us, hey, they're searching for this movie. Actually, are they come to us to search for movies? They're not, right? They're going to go where? They're going to go to IMDb for that, right? They're going to go to the cloud, to an app, an API. I'm using IMDb, but you could be using whatever you guys are using, right? So many of you are using Yelp, some are using Amazon, right? Some are using food, whatever API you intend to do, right? You're going to the cloud. I'm using IMDb. It's not going to our server, right? It's not going to our server. It's going to the cloud. So it's not coming here. What would it come here for? It would come here for saying, here I've searched IMDb for these movies. I found these 5 matching movies. I like this movie. So where do we store that? We have to store the fact that they like this movie, right? Or they wrote a review on this movie, or they bookmarked or something. We need to store it somewhere. Well, I can't store it in IMDb. IMDb is not going to let me do that, right? IMDb gives me access to their database, right? I can search for things. I can query anything I want, but I can't write it. I can't write to it. So I need to come back to my server to write for that, right? Well, I need to make space to store this. Typically, we go into a database. We don't have a database just yet. But let's create what we would need. What would we need? Let's see. Well, we're going to need just like there is a just like on the client, right? Just like on the client, we have mechanisms to talk to network, right? Either for incoming requests, right, or responding with responses, right? We need services, right? So we need the counterparts for what the client wants to talk about, right? If the client wants to ask us about a user, whether they're logged in, whether they've registered, who they are, or authenticate this user, well, we need to be able to receive those requests from the client, right? So we have a matching. We have a service on the client that's talking back to the server that needs to listen for these incoming requests, right? So just like you have a client service, you have a server service, right? Typically call them web services when it's on the server side. So just like there's a directory services on the client, there's also going to be a services directory. Okay. So in here you'll have things such as you'll have just like there's a movie service, right? On the client there will be a movie service on the server, right? And just like there is a user service, there will be a user service on the server. Okay, so what does this do? These guys, just like the client is coming back to talk to the server, right? The URL and say, hey, here's a user. Does this user exist? Well, the server needs to be ready to receive that request, right? Look up on the database and says, oh yes, this user exists or not, right? And then come back saying, yes, this user exists, right? So it needs to be able to receive that. So that's what the code that goes in here, right? And we've done that, but typically it looks something like this, right? You have module, exports, function, receives an app, and in here we create some kind of API, right? So you have some kind of API saying the things that I understand are that I can, where am I? Is this in user? I should be able to, log in. Oh, wait a minute. Let's, all right, we say app, right? And we say, well, you can receive incoming URLs, right? And I will write something like /login, right? And it will be invoking a function login. So if an incoming login request comes in, I will receive it and I'll do something with it, right? Or if you're asking for registration, right? A function that handles registration, right? Right, and we will be passed an object that represents the request, the incoming requests, right? And we're giving an object that we can generate over, right, for each one of these. So we've written a couple of these. So I'm not gonna redo this. Okay. So we have the services. So the services go on its own directory. Okay. What else do we need? So this is the interface between the incoming request from the client, right, from the browser. And now we're interacting with the server. So the server receives the incoming request and it responses. But what does it need to do? Login, for instance, what does it need to do? Well, it needs to take the username and password, right? Go through some collection of data looking for a user to see if this user exists, right? Typically it would be, you would hit a database, right? We don't have a database yet. But nevertheless, whatever the data should come from, it should come from a what we call a model, right? We need a model, right, that represents the collection of data, right? Whether the data lives on a file system, whether the data lives on a database, whether it lives on an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV, right? Doesn't really matter. We need a representation here on the server. The server needs a representation of that data, and the way we're going to represent it is again through a model. So we're going to have a directory under here. We're going to call it models. Okay, so models, here is where we're going to have all the JavaScript, right, that handles any interaction with the actual data, right? Whether the data lives on a file, on a database, it doesn't matter, right? This the model should give us a nice interface, right, that allows us to think about the data at a very high level, right? So we can forget about the fact that the data is stored as a file system or Excel spreadsheet or a database. We don't care where it's stored, right? Or maybe I need to go to a network and right? The model is going to abstract that and allow us to think about it at a high level. So for instance, if it's a user, you have a user model, right? How do you want to think about the user? Well, again, there's only 4 or 5 things that I can do about a user. I can create a user, I can delete a user, I can update a user, I can find a user by username and password, right? I can find all users, right? It's only 4 or 5 operations, plus variations of them. Okay, so that's to think about the user in those terms, right? So we do something like module.exports. right? And here I like to be able to create some kind of API that allows me to interface with the data, right? So I'm going to create an API. What are the things that I can do with the data? Well, I can either create a user, right? I can delete a user. Well, I can read a user, right? I can update a user, delete a user, right? Our CRUD, right? Delete is a reserved word, so I'm going to use remove. It'll be CRUR. Here we go, right? So return API. Yeah. Right, and here's the various functions that implement these operations. So create. Oh, read is also read is a reserved word as well. So I'm going to call it find. Find all. How's that? Just use find all. That returns all the users, or maybe that's find by ID. I can find a user by ID. I can also find a user. How? I can find by credentials. How's that? Find by credentials. So that's username and password, right? Okay, so there's a whole bunch of these. Let's see. Oops. Using a query here. There we go. All right. There we go. So yeah. So there's create. There's create, and typically, what would this do? Right? If it's a database, it would insert into a database. Yes. It would insert into a database. But we don't have a database, right? So for now, we're going to users, right? We're going to have an array of users with various properties. We're going to use mock data, right? Test data, right? Fake data, right? So let's create some fake data. Let's create some fake data. So this will be user.mock.json, right? And so this would look something like an array of users, right? And each one has an ID, right? 1, 2, 3. It has a first name, right? Alice. Maybe has a last name, Wonderland, and has a username, Alice, and password. Okay. And we can have a whole bunch of these, right? We can have Alice, different ID. This is Bob. Bob. Okay. In your model, okay, is there syntax error? Do I have any syntax error? User models. Let's see. User models complaining. What's it complaining? Oh, I'm missing a comma here. Right. All right. So as a model, we don't have a database. Right? We don't have a database. If we had a database, like we're going to talk about next week, on the server, right, in the top level server, right, we would instantiate the database, right? We would connect to the database, MongoDB or whatever, MySQL, whatever database you want, and you would give it a variable, just like we have app having a variable. The database will be DB. That's a very typical name to get called a database, right? And once you have the DB, you would pass it as arguments along here. It says comma DB. Right? You pass it, say, hey, here's a connection to the database, right? So eventually, what would happen is that the model, right, here, you would receive as argument DB, right, which is a live connection to the database, right? And that live connection to the database, now you can do, inserts, updates, deletes, connect to the actual database, right? Inside of this create, you would do db.insert, right, and you would insert actual data. Yes. Again, we don't have that just yet, and so here you would receive a an instance of a user that you want to create, that you want to insert into the database, right? What we're going to do is we're just going to add. We can load that array. We can say var mock. Here's a mock data, right? Or just call it data, I guess. Or I'll call it users. How's that? Users. We're going to require the file. What did I call it? User.mock. Is that what I called it? Right. So I'm going to add it to the user. So it'll be something like users.push.user, right? So this is just JavaScript, right? It's going to be an array. I'm adding this user to the array, and that's it. Maybe I should return the list of users, right? Which will include now this new user. Anyway, so you would have each one of these. So function find all, right? Find all. You would have function find by ID, right? You would have function find by credentials, and so on and so forth, right? Then and all the other ones, right? Function remove. What else? Update, right? It makes sense? Okay, so the structure, right, of when you start working on your project, and you should already be working on your project, right? The data structure, the folder structure should be slash movies, or maybe yours should be slash project, right, or final project, right? Under there, have one for the server. On the client, you put all your views under views. Yes, each view should have its own dedicated folder with HTML snippets, right, and controllers. Have a dedicated directory for all your services, a dedicated directory for all your JavaScript. You might want to have on the client also a separate configuration file. You may have here JavaScript config. Right, so any configuration on the client side, right? For instance, here you might declare navigation configuration, right? Like routers, right? You click here, you go here. You click there, you go somewhere else, right? That makes sense? How it should be structured? All right, great. Okay, so we did work a little bit on searching for movies. Let's get to that point. And I want to be able to. What I want to be able to do is find a movie, right, and store it and say I like this movie, right, and I want to put it in some model in the server. The server will store the data, right. It's not going to put it in the database. Remember that this person liked that movie, right? If the server goes down and it comes back up, it's going to forget everything, right? But that's fine. We'll fix that next week when we talk about databases, right? All right. Let's see. Let's quickly. Where were we? Let's see. We had. So we are our index, right? We're at the client, and we're going to load a couple of things here. We're going to have a link. So this is we're going to load some Bootstrap CSS. I think it's way up here. No, it's not there. Where is it? href. Did I go too far up? CSS. Okay. What do I have under here? Bootstrap. There it is. It's a style sheet. Then we're going to have a couple of other scripts, right? We're going to have here source. We have Angular. We have under JS. We have what do we have here? Oh, SRC. Thank you. Computers. It says there is, and here we have Angular. Bootstrap, not CSS, sorry, JavaScript, right? Angular's, where's Angular? Angular main, there it is. What else? We have another script. We're gonna do the navigation, right? So we can navigate from one page to the next. So we're gonna need routing, src. So we're gonna have JavaScript, and we're gonna have the routing. Right, there we go. What else? Let's load our application, right? Let's load our application. So it'll be script, src, our application. Let's just app.js, right? What else? We're gonna have to load the configuration, right? So we'll do script source config, right? What else do we need to load? Well, all the controllers, right, for each one of those views, but we'll do it as needed, okay? Well, actually, at least let's only focus on searching the movie, looking at the details of the movie, and liking that movie, right? So we'll need what? We'll need we have pages for that, don't we? What do we have? We have on the views, we have under movies, we have search, right, and details, right? So let's start off with search, okay? So we'll need controllers for these, right? So let's load the search controller. We'll need to load that too, right? So we'll load script source. So that lives where? Let's see. It loads in views, movies, search controller. There it is, right? There we go. Okay. Let's see. Let's close all these guys. There's too many things open. Close all. Let me open up on my index. There we go. Okay, what else do we need to do? Let's see. Well, we have to declare the application. This is an Angular application, right? And the application, we're going to call it movie app. Movie app. What else? Let's declare here some. Give it a class as container, right? Some bootstrap cotton candy there. And let's say we'll call this H1 movie app. Okay. Okay, let's see if this is running. Is the server running? The server is running. Okay, so we can navigate to it. Local hosts. Where is it listening at? Is it 3000? I always forget. Server, yes, listening at 3000. Okay, so 3000, and it's at lectures, under what? Movies, okay, lectures, movies, slash client, slash, just plain index, right? Okay, there it is. So movie app, right? We're in the right place. All right, so let's close that. Okay. Sorry, so let's start our application, right? We already declared it. We already declared it on the index, right? But it needs to be declared on JavaScript, so let's do that. Let's load up our app.js and say that indeed there is an application called movies, a function. Function, our immediately invoked function. So it's the Angular. There is a top-level module called movie app that depends on the ng. Right. So we can close that. And then we're going to configure. We're going to configure here saying that we want to navigate between these pages, right? We're going to navigate between the pages. So let's see. We'll do again our immediately invoked. We'll say Angular module. For the module movie app, we are going to configure. I'll put it in a separate function. So function configure. Right. So we're going to configure. What are we going to configure? The routing, right? If you click on this link, you navigate to this page. If you click here, you go there, right? So we're going to configure that. For that, we're going to ask for the route provider, so we can configure the routes. the routing. It will say that route provider, when you see home, then I want you to display the following template, which is located under views, home/home dot. And I want you to use the controller. I don't know, do we have a controller for that? Don't believe we have a controller, do we? Actually, I don't believe we created any of those, right? Did we? Yeah, we didn't create any of these. The only ones that we created are which ones? The one under movies, right? Those are the only ones we've sort of created, right? So let's not bother with home, okay? Let's just do the ones we did create. We created search. How about search? If it's search, then if I see /search, I want to go into movies, and I want to display search.view, right? And I want to load the controller associated to that is called search movie controller. Is that what we called it? I forget. Is that what we called it? Yes, that's what we call it, right? Yep. If instead they see, details, then I want to use instead the template URL to show what? To show views, movies, details.view.html. Controller, what's it called? It's that one, right? Movie controller. There we go. All right. Otherwise, right? If it's neither one, we're just going to say by default we just want to redirect to search, right? So if we don't know what you want, I'm just gonna default to search. Okay. All right. So let's see what else we need to do for this all thing to work. We're gonna inject all those templates. We're gonna inject them right here, right? We're gonna inject them right here. Div ng view. We're gonna inject all those templates in here. Let's see if this blows up. Okay, it worked. Wow, it worked the first time, huh? Yeah, so search movie was injected, right? It defaults to just search movie, right? Or details. So details goes to movie details, right? So it navigates. Notice the page is not loading. The page is not reloading, right? So that HTML has been injected into that div dynamically, right? So that's the whole thing. That's the whole point of this course, right? Creating single page applications, never reload, never navigate away from our index page, right? Anyway, and notice that the history still works, right? The back button works, the forward button works. Notice movie app is common to all of them, right? Just up here. All right, great. So let's see. Let's do our search. Yes.
Otherwise, stay in the same page.
What do you mean?
So if I'm in movie view page, details page, and
yep.
if I type something else, the otherwise should stay in the same page.
So a different route, but the same page. A different route. So yeah, so you could certainly do that right? You know, blah. And over here, I'm saying I still want to stay in details. So both route, right, are staying on the same page, right? I could do that, or well, it depends what you want to do. I don't know. Why do you want to stay on the same page? Do you want something to change sub to that page? Like, is there like a sub view? Why would you want to stay on the same page?
Say like I'm in the details view page and you go back and type something. I don't want the user to be taken to the index page. I want to stay in the same page.
Yeah. So that's what otherwise does, right? You could also here you can use patterns. right? So anything that fits this pattern, right? I want to go to this page, right? So you could use regular expressions, right? You know, stars, dot, that starts with this but ends with that, right? So you could do all sorts of nifty little patterns and stay on the same page. Or you could go, you know, in an otherwise and says, hey, I don't know where you're going, right? You know, an error page, right? It says I want to go either to an error, those kinds of things. Or you can do interceptions. We haven't seen interceptions. You can intercept, right? You can intercept in navigation, right? You're going to navigation, right? And in that interception, you can say that you reject the navigation. It says, I have no idea where you're going. You're staying where you are. Yes.
We inject headers.
Headers. No, instead, what you would do here, right, is you would do an include, right? For instance, you might say that you want to include ng include, right? Div ng include, right? And you can give it here a page that you want to include, right? So you can say, for instance, that I want to include header/header.html, right? Right. So that you can say here, if you have a header, you have a page here, and say that this is header.view.html, and say that this is maybe this is an h2. This is a header, right? It's not including it. What am I missing? Did I call it wrong? Header. Oh, it's header view.html. Still not including it. What am I missing? Include console. Let's see. What is it saying? Blah, blah, blah. It's not finding header view. Did I misspell it? Client, header. Oh, views. It's under views, right? Views under header view. There it is, right? What is it complaining about here? It says, oh, movie details controller. Did we even create movie details controller? Did I misspell that? Did I misspell it? Let's see. Movie details controller. Oh, I never loaded it, right? None of those controllers were loaded in index. I need to load them, right? Yes.
Can we have one particular header for few pages and another header for other few pages?
What you do is that you can have different views, right? And choose which view you want for each one of them, right? Where you can either navigate away, right, into another page that has a completely different set of headers, right? Or you can have the headers be, you can have different headers and show one or the other depending on some logic, right? So for instance, you know, you might have here, you might say, you know, ng if, right? And here you can put a predicate, right? And say if, you know, if the URL is blah 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 blah, then use this header, right? If the header is something else, if the URL is something else, then show this other header, right? Yeah, you can use ngIf. Right? Put a predicate here. Okay. Instead, what you really want to, if you're having those kinds of you know, conditional, right? We can have a view that contains other views. There's another router that's somewhat. This is the default router, right? There's a more powerful router called a UI router. Right? The UI router allows you to like nest views, for instance, like an outer view that contains views, you know, subset of views, which is very, very powerful. The configuration is somewhat more involved. Instead of saying when and have a URL, you declare states. You declare, you know, for this state of the application, these are the views that I want to display. You know, if I'm in this other state, you know, I want to display these other views with these controllers. You know, very, very powerful. Anyway, we're using the default route provider, right, out of the box. Okay. All right. So, okay, this makes sense. Who's asking me? Yeah. Well, the thing is that if you put it out here, I mean, sure. I mean, it depends, right? It depends. The container, it's bootstrap, right? It's bootstrap only adding padding on each side, right? That's all the container is, right? And if you don't want that padding, right? If you take it out there, you'll notice that the padding is removed, right? Right? So search and then details, right? So this would be details. Details. You know, navigation at the top, and it allows you to navigate. Why is this not details? There it is. Right, it allows you to navigate between the pages. Right? Again, notice that the page is not reloading, right? Even though it looks like you're navigating, right? The content is dynamically being injected, right? Would be a nice place to put some navigational stuff that is shared across all pages, right? Anyways, but that's not what we're doing. Let's go to search. Let's go to search. Oh yeah, we need those controllers, right? We need each one of these controllers. Let's go to index and load all these controllers. So we loaded the search controller, but we never loaded the other controller, right? We need the details controller. The reason we need both is that because we're loading first the search page, search view, right, which is tied to the search controller, right? And then we're loading the details view, which is also loaded to the details controller. See that? So that's why I was complaining, saying, hey, you told me one of the controller, but you never told me the other controller. All right, so let's reload. Hopefully the error is gone. Okay, let's reload, see if the error is gone. Yeah, the error is gone. Right, I can navigate from both. Okay, very good. So in the search, let's quickly see what we do on the search. On the search page. So in the search page, right, we're going to have input class form control, right? Maybe a placeholder where this is a title, movie title. And we want a button class button. Nope, not that. BTN primary, and BTN block. Right, that's just to make it look a little prettier, right? So search. There we go. All right, so if we load search, we reload that. Okay, we have a search title, right? A movie title and the search. And down below, what we want is some table to display those results. So we have maybe T-body, and we have a TR table row, and this is I want one row per movie that is found, right? One row per movie. So I want to say I want to repeat this row. And repeat. I want to repeat this row for every movie in the search in the results. Right, and the table data will be that I want to display. I want to display the movie title. I want to display the movie ID. No, it's what is it? IMDb ID. What is it? What is it? IMDb ID. So IMDb like that. You sure? Well, we'll see. We'll see in a minute. When they click the button, I want to tell the controller, hey controller, when they click this button, search, and I want to pass it the title, right? The title, and the title is this, right? ng model. This is the title, right? This input field is the title, and I'm going to pass it the title to the controller to search. And then the search will go off to IMDb, update my results, and the results will render, okay? So let's go to the controller for the search, right? So there it is. So here's the search. Now, typically this is what we've been doing, right? We have a scope, yes? We have a scope. In the scope, we say scope, right? And we tie it to a function, search, in the title, right? And here's where we go off to IMDb and search for something, right? Now, I mentioned last class that this is a good practice, right? If right at the top of the controller, right? If you have, 10, 20, 30, I don't know how many event handlers you might have per page. Well, that'd be monstrous, right? If you have 20 event handlers per page. But anyway, so if you have 2 or 3 event handlers, a good practice is to declare them right at the top, right? So I don't have to scroll down to see what the event handlers are. Well, but if I don't have to, right? And the functions are the ones who do this, right? So that's and let's see if this works, right? Let's see if we have alert, if this works, alert title. So let's refresh this. Let's see if this works, right? If I type something, it's live. There's one more thing that's it's a good practice, right? So a good practice is not to even use the scope variable. Okay. Oftentimes, this scope variable is misunderstood or is other scopes, right? That instead it should be tied to the instance of the controller, right? The controller should maintain all the data that the view needs, right? And nobody and from nowhere else, right? The problem here is that other controllers, right? And sometimes it's or you have a view inside of a view inside of a view with each one having its own controller. It's oftentimes a problem that this scope, right, is littered with data from other controllers, right, that might live above its hierarchy, right? So to be able to make sure that the data you're looking at, right, if you're looking at search, it's your search button, right? It's not some other search button declared at a higher level, okay? Talking about the correct button, right, that was called search, right? You might have, if you have nested views, it becomes a problem. This is more of a problem on very large applications, right, where you have, huge views that include other views that include other views that include, and each one has controllers, and each one might, maybe way at the top you have a button search, and then down below here you have another search button, right? And now you have like this, well, which one do you mean? Do you mean the one down below here, or you want to mean way up there, right? So because you can have this collision of namespaces, right? It's becoming, right? Not use the scope, right? Actually, in the next version of Angular, right? They're much more explicit about doing this, right? Where you're very, very explicit on what model are you talking about, right? Again, on small applications like this, it's irrelevant, right? When you're doing, right? But when you go out there and in the real world, right? You're working with a team of 20, 30 people, and everybody's working in different pieces that then come together to build a large page. It's very common that you have these collisions, right? It says, why did you call it search? I called it search. Well, no, it's my search. It's his search. Right? A maintenance nightmare. Anyway, so to get away from that, right? To get away from that, there's a better practice, right? Is instead to do this, right? Is to say declare a model, and say this, meaning I'm gonna tie the data. Okay, all the data that the view is going to see is going to be tied to this particular controller, right? And there won't be any misunderstanding of which controller we're talking about, right? It's this controller, right? So if I say model, right? Back in the view, what we're going to do is, sorry, in the configuration, we're going to give the controller, we're going to give it a name. We're going to say as model. Right, the controller is going to be my model. He'll hold all the data in there. Okay. You use that keyword model, right, to represent any communication back to the controller. So now it's tied to that namespace, right? So now this becomes model.search, right? Model.results, right? So this is data that was coming from the server. So model.search, model.results. Now, right, it is explicitly, you know, I have tied the data and communication, right? All the event handlers are being handled by that controller. The data is going to that controller, and there is no misunderstanding of which controller has the data for which page. That makes sense, right? Anyway, let's see if we broke it. Let's run this again. I broke it. Let's see, model config search movie. Is that where I am? In search, right? In search, search movie controller as model, and in the view, ng-click model. Maybe we forgot something in the controller. This, and then, okay, obviously I have to say model.search, right, is equal to search. Right, so this event handler, this function is tied to this controller model. Right, let's reload. Okay, it's working again, right? Again, on a prototype like this one, such a, you know, some throwaway example, it's not a big deal, right? But it's something that is becoming more and more common out there in the industry. When you're talking about a large project, it's a good thing you start looking at it now, right? Again, also, this right here, right? That's an overkill, right? Of having this, you know, immediately invoked functions. It's an overkill. We don't really need that, but it's very, very common in real world applications where, again, you want to maintain the namespace. You don't want to litter the namespace out there. So you have it all within this function call. All right, good. So we have that. All right, so we want to go out to IMDb to search for this. So we're going to create a movie service to do that, right? Service. And so we want to do something like movie service search a movie by title, right? And we give it a title. Okay. So let's write that movie service, right? So that movie service, we wrote it already last week, and maybe I should copy that, right? What do I have that? Where do I have that? I think I had it under Angular. No, not there. Where do I have it? Angular. Anyway, it was trivial, right? Let's see if we could. Where is it? My API fields, right? And so this is the API that we're using to connect to IMDb. And so here's, I want to search by title, and if I'm looking for avatar in the format JSON-P, and I want 5 of these, 5 movies that match that, and I search, it'll give me the URL that we might need, right? So I'm just going to copy this, copy. All right, so let's write that movie service based on that. So let's go, where does the service go? Under services, the service, right? So let's write it. Let's write it and talk to IMDb. So let's see, again, function, Again, this is an overkill using the immediately invoked functions, but it's so common out there that you should get used to using this function. Anyway, so let's see. We'll say Angular dot module. What is it? Movie app. And we're going to create a service called movie service. Movie, there it is, in a function called movie service. And movie service is going to want to use HTTP to talk to the server, right? I want to talk to the INV. I want to be able to send a GET request, right? I want to send a URL and I want to expect data back, right? What do we call it? Search, what do I call it? All right, search movie by title, right? Search movie by title, right? And we're just gonna return the API, and we're gonna implement it here, right? Search movie by title. It takes as argument a title, and it's gonna use this URL, right? So the URL is gonna be what we just copied. There it is. That's the URL. Oh, what else do we need to add here? Remember, this is JSON-P. What do we need to add here? I'm sorry? Yes, we need to add the callback, right? So this is callback. And what was it? Anybody remember what goes in here? I think it's JSON callback. Is that right? Right, so we're going to go and search. We're going to send a GET request to that URL. Right, we're going to send a GET request, and hopefully IMDb will respond with a response, right? And for now, we're just going to console log response. Okay. All right, so let's try it out. Let's try it out. Yes. I'm sorry? I misspelled it. Call back. JSON. No? Oh, thank you. Yes, good catch. Thank you. We have to load that service, right? Because that service is called movie service. We have to load it here, right? So let's load it. It's a script source. It's not a view. It's under services, right? Services. There it is. Slash, and then movie services. There it is. Okay. Anything else we need to load? I think that's it, right? Okay. Let's try it out. And search. Did it work? No. Network. Oh yeah, it did. There it is. There's the request. The request went out to IMDb. And it's taken a while. There's a request. Wow, it's taken a while. Oh, look, the callback, something went wrong. It didn't do the callback. See that? It didn't replace it. Oh, right, we forgot something. It's not a GET, right? What is it? JSON-P, right? JSON-P, we're asking for JSON-P, not a GET. Let's try it again. Oh, it came back. It says that it came back. Oh, wait, it says 200. Okay, JSON-P, all the parameters went out. I think because we didn't do a JSON-P call, right? Let's try it again. Let's refresh. Let's do a search. There it is. Okay, there's the query. Okay, this time, there it is. See that? Angular replaced it with its own function, right? And the preview, there's a preview. See that? The function, that's what comes back from IMDb. See that? IMDb said, oh, it's a JSON-P call. All right, what's the name of the callback? And we gave it the callback, right, as an argument. There it is, right? We told it that's the callback that we want, right? We didn't tell it. Angular did, right? And and that's what the name that it provided. So the way it's passing us data, right? The way it's passing us data is through calling this function, right? Which eventually is going to call us, which it called us hopefully in the console. We displayed it on the console. There it is. It came back with 5 objects, right? The 5 movies that match my search criteria, which is Avatar, right? There it is. When his brother is killed in a robbery, right? There it is. Jake Scully. Anyway, it came back and we displayed it. Instead, what do we want to do? We want to display this on the UI, right? On the front end. So to do that, how do we normally do that? Remember, these are asynchronous calls, right? These are asynchronous calls. You saw how long it took, right? We don't want the browser to block all this time that IMDb is taking so long to respond, right? So we don't want to block, so it has to be an asynchronous call, right? So what do we normally do? We put a callback, right? There's a callback, and what we do is says, no, we're not going to wait for you. We're not going to wait for you. Whenever you're done, call us back with the data, right? All right. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks, yes? But there's a problem with this. Well, I mean, not a real problem. The problem is what happens when you have nested queries, right? Say you're calling hotels.com because you want a hotel, right? And you're calling Orbitz because you need an airplane, and you're calling Hertz because you need a car, right? And either they all succeed or I don't care. If any one of them does not succeed, I don't want to go to Chicago, right? I need a hotel, I need a car, right? And I need an airplane, right? Any one of them fails, I'm not going, right? So typically I need to synchronize these 3 things to happen, and they're all asynchronous. Maybe the rental car comes first, right? And then the airplane, but not the hotel. But I need to wait until I continue and tell you, yes, I have all 3 things. So so I need to synchronize these callbacks. So how do I do this? Because they're all asynchronous, yes? So typically the way you would do this, if you're using this technique, is right? And then when it comes back, then you do the 3rd call, right? But that's very, very inappropriate, right? Because you you have this very powerful multi-threaded computer, right? And then you're synchronizing everything, right? Each one taking a few seconds. What you want to be able to do is send them all at once. Be able to synchronize the callback. Well, to do that, you would have to do this. You either nest them yourself or use a better approach. A better approach is not to use callbacks, right? Not to use callbacks. So that's what I want to introduce today. There's an API. There's an API called the queue API, right? The queue API, as in queue, as in I want to make a queue. I want to make a list, right? Meaning there's people waiting for you, right? And I'm going to serve them one at a time, right? We make a queue, right? What happens here is that the way this API works is that this function is going to return immediately with what it's called a promise. It says, I promise to come back to you, right? I am going to defer you, meaning don't wait for me. I'm going to return you immediately saying, I'm busy. Go on, keep going, right? Don't wait for me, right? My response is a deferred response, right? I'm going to defer my response till everything comes back. Right? I will handle the multi asynchronous calls. I will enlist all the responses, and I'll call you back when they all come back. Right? That's what queue does. Right? And the way it works is you say var, you create a deferred object from queue. Say queue defer. Okay, and you immediately come back and it says, you're going to return from this function, giving you a promise. I promise to get back to you, okay? Just hold on, keep doing whatever you're doing. I promise to come back to you, right? So I'm going to return a deferred promise. Okay, promises has become very, very popular in development circles. Again, because instead of forcing us to create these nested, invocation, first talk to one, then to talk to another, then talk to another, right? It allows us to create an array of deferments, right? And it says, I'm waiting on these three things, right? Call me back when all things are done, right? And so what happens here is that in your success, instead of a callback, we're not going to do callback. That's what we're doing for the last 2 or 3. That we, okay, here's the response that's going to come back from the server, right? The server. This is the response from the server. What we do is that we resolve the promise, right? We say the promise has been resolved, meaning it has come back. Now I can fulfill the promise. I want to fulfill the promise. So it's I can say deferred, resolve it, meaning fulfill the promise, resolve, and pass the data that came back from having maybe waited on 3, 4, 5 things. Right? I could be having. I was only waiting on one, right? But there's a whole bunch of them. There we go. All right. Okay. Now what happens in the controller? What happens in the controller? So now the controller, here's the call, right? That was passing the title. Callback right here, right? We used to have the callback right here, right? We have a function, right? You have the function here, and then the response would be here. Yes? This is what we used to do like 3 weeks ago. Instead, what we're going to do now, this function returns what? This function returns a promise, right? Right here, right? See this function, we called it? What does it return? Promise. So this function comes back immediately with the promise, right? So this returns a promise. That call then on it that says, when the promise is resolved, I will then call you back, right? When the promise is resolved, which might take a couple of seconds, it might take a minute. Right? I don't know. The server is taking too long, right? But nevertheless, this function does not block the client. The client is free to use, right, to keep interacting with the server, right? What could you possibly do here? We could maybe turn on a spinner, maybe, right? You could turn on a spinner, right? Maybe we're using jQuery or something, right? And then in this the spinner, right? Okay, so here's where the response comes back, right? Here's where the response comes back, right? When it comes back. What are we going to do? We're going to send it to the UI, the user interface for rendering. What does the user interface expect? It expects results, or expects an object called results. So let's send it back. We'll say model.results equal the response. Here we go. Okay. All right. Let's see if we broke it. If it's hopelessly broken. There it is, Avatar, the last airbender, right? So it did come back. All the data is coming back. Although the avatar, right, it's hard-coded in the URLs, right? So what we really want to do is use a title here, right? They use the actual title that you type. So let's go back. Instead of having avatar hard-coded here, we'll put it with a placeholder. So I say title, right? And then whatever title you pass us, we're going to say URL equals URL dot replace, right? The keyword, the title variable that passes in, right? And then use that URL. Use that URL. Okay. So if we reload, also, oh look, that's a table. That's an ugly table. Let's change that table a little bit. Let's paint it with Bootstrap. So we'll say that use Bootstrap's table class. And table, I want striped. What else? That's it, right? Okay, let's refresh this. So let's look for Terminator. search. It's taking a while. It's taking a while. But so the Terminator Genesis, right? Goes and fetches this from IMDb and displays it here. Okay, so I want to send now the fact that I like this, right? Oh, so I guess it's not IMDb. Got it wrong. What is it? Let's look at the network that came back. Let's copy this. Oh, I have it here. IMDb. Oh, ID IMDb. There it is. ID IMDb. Spelled it wrong. I spelled it wrong. There's ID IMDb. So the last one is IMDb. Okay, so we want a button here. Button class. It's a glyphicon. So I want a star MP with a glyphicon. Actually, no, that has to be a span, right? Sorry. So this is a span. Inside of a button. And and button info. There we go. And when they click on this button, ng-click, I want to call the controller and say that I like that movie, right? What am I passing? I'm going to pass the IMDb ID. There it is. IMDb at all, right? I'm just going to notify. I'm going to notify the controller that I like that movie. Okay. That means that on the controller, I need to have an event handler, right, for that, right? I need to say, hey, controller, they're going to call you with a like function, and you're going to implement it with this function down here, also called like. And the ID, the data is the IMDb that's going to be passed to you. What we're going to do, we're going to say movie service dot, we're going to say likes, because it is the movie service is going to talk back to the data that they like this ID IMDb. I'm going to pass it there, right? Okay. I'm sorry? Oh, thank you. I did that on purpose. See if you were awake. Model. All right. And in the service, what does the server do? Likes, profile, controller. This one, right? Oh, it's not that one. Movie service. Where's the movie service? Here it is, right? So presumably there's a likes here. There's a function called likes. Likes, right? And that's going to talk to our server, likes, and it has the ID IMDb. It was called to our server, saying $HTTP dot post. Okay. Notice that the first one, the URL was going out to where? To IMDb, yes? But this URL, who's going to come to? Certainly IMDb is not going to be able to like a movie, right? It's up to us to remember that this person likes the movie. So we have to go to our server, right? Our server, let's call it, let's make a URL, /API, /lectures, movies, likes, right? And we're going to pass this argument, the ID IMDb. Okay? And if that's successful, what do? We want to notify back the client saying it was successful, right? You have successfully liked. So how do we do that? Again, we would use the deferred q.defer, right? And we would immediately return, because this, again, even though it's our server, it might take a couple milliseconds, right? A couple seconds to get back to us, right? So immediately we return a promise. Promise, right? But we resolve it. We resolve it whenever the server comes back with a response. I would say defer.resolve.response. Let's see if we refresh. Right? So instead of searching and bothering IMDb all the time, I'm going to put here a dummy movie. I'm going to put a dummy movie here. So in a dummy table row, and I'm going to create a dummy movie. Dumb and dumber. And I'm going to say here, I'm going to copy, and I'm going to notify the controller that I like the movie whose IMDb is 123 TWE. Okay, I'm just testing it, right? I refresh. There it is. I have the like. Oh, that star, I'm going to pull right-hand side. Let's say pull, right? So it's a little to the right, so it's a little better. So now if I click on it, notice the URL down below here, the network. When I click on it, notice that it generates, oh, it doesn't. Wait, what happened? Why didn't it work? Network? Yeah, it is network. What is it? Model.likes, right? See again? Okay, there it is. See that? The 123 QWE. So it was a post was generated, but the server responded saying, "I don't know that URL. I don't know what you're asking me to do." Right? I know that you're passing me this, right? So we have to go back to the server. We have to go back to the server and configure that, right? So we have to go back to our server. So here's our app for the server. Wait, no, that's one server app. There it is, right? We have to say load the services, right? What services do we have? The movie service. There's nothing in it, right? But let's load it anyway. So let's load it. So we'll say require services slash movie service.js, and we're going to pass it app. Okay. So in movie service, we're going to a post, right? So we're receiving a post from the client, right? And it's listening for the URL API slash, what was it? Copy from here, right? So this one, right? Here's the URL. Here's the URL that the paste that. So that's going to be an argument. So IMDb, right? And when that happens, if that URL comes in, I want to call the likes function, right? And the likes function is declared down here. So function that receives a request and a response, and it's going to extract the ID IMDb from the parameters from the request. What I called it, ID IMDb, and I'm just going to do a likes. I'm just going to display ID IMDb just to make sure that the server is receiving that. Also, notice if you're going to have a whole bunch of URLs that you're listening to, you know, a post, a put, a delete, a get, a whole bunch of them, declare them at the top, right? Declare them towards the bottom, right? So that I can, you know, if I'm developing this, if I'm looking at your work, right, I'm reviewing your code, it's much easier for me to immediately see the URLs that you're listening at, right? If I want to read the implementation, I can scroll down, but I don't have to if I don't want to, right? So let's restart the server. So let's try that post again. Let's refresh. We can send it to the right-hand side a little bit. And if we like it, okay, notice that, oh, it says likes undefined. What happened? Something went wrong. Let's see. Well, the URL is correct, right? Because the server got hit, right? The server hit it, but something happened with the IDMDB. Did I misspell it? Request. Oh, maybe it's params. Is it params? Maybe that's what it is, right? Click on it. There it is. Likes 1, 2, 3, right? So now we need to use the model, right, to store that in the model, right? And I've run out of time. I'll post this as an example so that you can start looking at how to use this. But typically, what you would do next, right, is that you know, just like we loaded the service, you would load the model, right? You would load the model from here, right? You would, say, var model require blah blah blah, right? You would load the model here, and then you would call the model. You say, model dot the model, right? And that data would stay on as long as the server is running, right? Or from next week on, it will stay there until the database dies, right? Okay. All right, we'll continue this on Monday, right? Thank you.